Hello and welcome, Leigh Tipper. It's so great to have you here today, talking about how to unleash our superpowers. Pretty exciting topic for today. I'd like to get started by sharing a little bit about who you are with our listeners. Leigh is an international healer, teacher, speaker, and aspiring author who helps people fully integrate their mind, body, spirit connection, enabling them to discover their very own superpowers. Leigh has discovered that when people tap into their own superpowers, they have the ability to heal, prosper, and grow. They can literally go from merely surviving to thriving. She has witnessed this firsthand in her own life and in the lives of so many others. At an early age, Leigh had the ability to work with energy and see more in people. Deep down, she knew there was more to life. As a child, Leigh spent hours with her nose close to the earth, communicating with spiritual beings no bigger than her little hand. They brought gifts of joy, whispering secrets of the universe. She thought everyone had the same abilities and experiences, but she soon discovered not everyone did. Leigh was severely bullied and found it very difficult to relate to the so-called normal world. Leigh made a conscious decision turn off her spiritual gifts and in her childhood in hopes of fitting in. She remembers looking to the summer sky, praying that one day she would be able to return to them. Leigh struggled through school, never being able to focus on learning. It wasn't until she found basketball that she was able to put her head down and work at something that mattered to her, something that she was good at. She expressed herself through art and drama, but after graduation, Leigh felt no desire to do much with herself. Looking back, she most likely was suffering from depression, and this led to a very rough road filled with abusive relationships and hard times. Leigh believes that her children came to save her life. Her journey to remembering began after the birth of her second child. Laying with her daughter as she nursed, Leigh's childhood memories came flooding back. It was as if her daughter awakened the little girl inside of her. At that time, Leigh was in a very traumatic relationship. It was difficult for her to navigate these gifts awakening while simultaneously seeing her husband struggle with mental illness. Leigh began to have health issues, which led to her to be able to see to go see an energy healer. It was the healer that told Leigh that she was a very ancient soul and that she was here on earth to help heal humanity. While the next year, Leigh had the scare of her life. In the middle of the night, while her family was asleep, she lost all mobility of her muscles and speech and was rushed to the hospital. She doesn't remember anything about the ride in the ambulance. At the hospital, she was put through all kinds of tests, but all Leigh remembers is seeing various lights and having multiple conversations with spirit. When she finally came to, the doctors informed her there was nothing wrong with her. After this incident, Leigh's world was suddenly filled with energy workers and shamans. Each of them affirmed this health scare as an awakening and confirmed her ability to help others heal. The time that followed was like a great remembering for Leigh. Every sense became heightened and her ability to communicate beyond the physical realm expanded. Eventually, Leigh left her marriage with her two children. With nowhere to live, she went on an adventure. She hit the road on a 7-week adventure, just her, a van, and her 2 amazing children. Her goal was to teach them that life is truly what you make of it. The endings are amazing opportunities for new beginnings, and that there is so much more to life than pain and struggle. In that process, she worked diligently to heal her children and herself. As Leigh's gifts and abilities began to awaken further, and as she dedicated herself to serving others, Leigh believes that everyone has the superpowers required within to heal themselves. Her passion is to help others awaken to these abilities using their mind, body, and spirit, ultimately creating a more fulfilling and liberating life. Leigh is here to show others the value of their life and to teach unconditional self-love. Her remote healing sessions vary from energy medicine and sound healing to self-empowerment lessons and guided meditations. She has helped hundreds of people move from struggling in surviving to living fully and thriving. Not only does Leigh work with clients one-on-one, she also teaches her carefully crafted courses online. She's currently working on her first book, which is due to release in 2021. You can learn more about Leigh and her various programs on her website, theluminousLifewithLeigh.com. Leigh, welcome. It's so great to have you here today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, you've been through a lot, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to interview you today because we're in the midst of a pandemic. The world is dealing with the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, and there's just so much happening in the world right now. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to interview you because I think there's so much that you can share with our listeners today. But I'd like to start with could you tell us a little bit more about your health issue that you encountered several years ago that led you on the spiritual journey and to where you are now, and how you discovered how it's possible for all of us to unleash our super healing powers from within?
Yeah. Well, it started after my daughter was born. A year or so after, I started to develop what doctors labeled as eczema. It was from the tips of my fingers all the way up my arms and all down behind the back of my legs. It was impossible to sleep. I was always scratching, bleeding. Anytime my temperature rose, if I went for a walk, it would break out further. It was one of the most uncomfortable feelings I've ever experienced in my life. And every doctor wanted to just lather me and creams and just even to try and teach me how to live with it. And I refused that I had to accept that this was how my life was going to look. If I was using steroids and things like that, I was completely against that. So I went and seeked out some natural help, and nothing worked. Diet change didn't work. Cleanses didn't work. In fact, it even made it worse. Things, and the frustration of it in itself made it worse. Living in my body, basically rejecting my own body, made it worse. And it wasn't until someone recommended that I went to an energy healer that I, finally started to see some results. And when I went to her, she spoke about the energy behind the message, and she kept calling it a message versus an illness. And this just shifted everything for me. My mind just began to open to this energy that was, coming from divine source. Mm-hmm. And as I began to actually talk to it and nurture the feelings and work with her, it started to go. Mm-hmm. But then there was this other thing happening where I was, awakening to these possibilities of my own superpowers, my own healing abilities with others. And that led to this night of immobility. I was in bed and awakened with a headache, just a migraine, whatever. It was so loud, and there was ringing, and it just felt like everything inside my head was pushing out with so much pressure. And my body was aching, hurting. So I decided to get in the bath. And I laid in the bath, and instantly I knew this was not a good idea. It's like, no, I cannot be in this water right now. And my son naturally came into this world as a healer. He's just the most gentle soul I've ever met. And I decided to get out of the tub and go lay with him. But that wasn't helping either, because the more I laid there, the more paralysis I started to experience. I couldn't move my hands. All of a sudden, everything was starting to freeze, and the headache was just getting worse. So I managed to be able to get on my all fours and sort of crawl towards my bedroom where my husband at the time was sleeping. And the crawling became like physically dragging myself. And then my legs collapsed. And then all I could do was get to his toes hanging at the end of the bed. and shake them awake. And he looked up and was like, what's going on? What's wrong with you? Why are you down there? And I had no words, like nothing, just sound came out, like there was nothing. And he was like, what are you doing? Why are you talking like that? And I just kept, like, I couldn't, nothing was coming out, but just like these sounds. And he called 911. And as soon as he called them, that was when I just blocked out. I remember my son crying because he was obviously very scared. He'd woken up by then. And I remember other bodies being around me, and I'm guessing, I don't even know how I got downstairs. My husband later told me that they all the men carried me down. I'm a big person. I'm 6 feet tall, and I was like, how did they get me down there? So yeah, and I got in the ambulance. Don't remember any of it. All I remember is this lights in the hospital. I was laying in the bed, I guess, and I remember just seeing like brushes of light pass through my eyes, like a paintbrush. Like it was just the energy. It was total energy. My eyes were closed, and behind I could just see brush strokes of energy. And I could only assume what it felt like was the people involved in rushing around me. And everyone having their own color, everyone having their own frequency signature, and all that. And having this conversation, like, you can stay or you can go, but it's not your time to go. So how are you going to stay? And it was like, I not pleaded to stay, but it was like, yes, I'll stay. But there was this element behind it that, like, if you stay, you have to follow through on this healing path. You have to embody your purpose. You have to, keep going down this road that you have started. There is no going back. There was never, ever a moment where you're like, you can't go back now. And yeah, that was sort of what happened. And they couldn't find anything wrong when I came to.
That's fascinating. What I'm hearing you say is that, when you were at your wit's end, right? You were, you realized, having the health ailments that you had was not something you were willing to live with. And you were determined to find a way to heal. And when you stumbled across the energy healer, here you have a different perspective being given to you. And the perspective is, rather than looking at your eczema and the other issues that you were dealing with at the time as an enemy, you started to look at it for what's the message in it, what's the gift in it. And then through that process, you started to evolve, and the healing just started to happen naturally.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally like looking at it and asking what it's come to show me, what it's come to tell me, and sitting in it. And it wasn't something that I got an answer right away. None of this energy work and spirit and powerful things that are lying in it just pop up. It's like anything else. You have to practice. I had to practice that daily. It was about switching my mind from forcing it away and trying to do everything to push it out of me, to working with it, accepting it, and speaking with it. It was about letting go of the battle and embracing that my body isn't here to hurt me. It's here to guide me and help me. And so what is it trying to tell me? And it's just like yoga or anything else where you have to do it consciously every day.
I think that's an important lesson. It's just not a one and done thing. It's literally a process, and it's a way of life, actually. And wow, just so powerful. So I want you to share a little bit more about, so you discover your, ability to communicate and be with, the ailments that your body was revealing it. And, that led to you embracing and opening up more of your spiritual gifts, and ultimately led you to, you know, the work that you're doing today as a healer. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process, and you know, what do you say to the skeptics out there that, you know, about this? Because, you know, I want to be really clear here, you know, to the listeners. In no way are we saying anything negative about the medical establishment, doctors and nurses. In no way are we saying that at all. And it's just that, you know, you just kept on this journey of searching for answers, but unfortunately, you know, the folks that, the doctors and nurses that you're working with didn't have answers at that time. And so you were on a personal journey, and then you discovered another way and another perspective. And I think that's what we want to illustrate here, is that people should consult and do what's right for them. And so I want to be mindful of that. But what do you say? What do you say to people?
Well, first of all, just to address that, like, we live, it's my belief that we live in a multidimensional reality, and with multiple layers upon layers, you know, and though the Western medicine is one layer, it's part of of all of it, right? It isn't about shutting anything out and doing one thing in particular. It's about attacking or loving things from and addressing them rather from every layer that's possible. You know, this isn't about like, this is the way and that's the wrong way. It's about like, what else can we work with, you know, like what else is in the mind, body, and spirit. All of that is necessary to look at when anybody's healing mental illness, addiction, physical illness, all of those things. But as far as the skepticism goes, I was skeptical too. I mean, like, someone said, go see an energy healer. And I was like, okay, this, like, you know, this will be fun. She'll tell me some woo-woo things. And I know maybe I'll get an hour where I'm laying on a bed without my kids, and I'll just like treat it like a spa day almost or something, you know? I did not expect that this woman was going to tell me I was an ancient soul. I didn't even know what that meant at the time. Like, you know, and she's like, oh, you're from so far away. And I was like, okay, well, from where is that? Do you know how I got here then? Like, what does that even mean? It didn't mean anything to me at that time either. I didn't, you know, it was hard to accept. And never mind accept, it was hard to go home and talk about it. You know, how was I going to tell people that this was healing because I was talking to my arms? Like, you know, people want to believe what they're comfortable with. That's, you know, that was my challenge, was being the weirdo, being the trailblazer, being the one that said like, hey guys, this is actually really working for me, and there's no way now that I'm going back. And if you have a right to be skeptical, because just like anything, there are healers out there that are not good for anybody, you know, and there are people out there that are bypassing a lot of the real work that has to be done. I mean, you know, it's just like every area in life, there's some people that are providing good names for those things, and there's some people that are not. So skepticism is just, it's actually a sign of discernment. You know, you have a right to use your discernment, but I wouldn't be afraid of it. You know, I would say that, you know, that if you're guided to it, trust that guidance. If you feel pulled or called in that direction, go and find out what's calling you there.
I think that's really important. You know, I was a big skeptic myself, and until after experiencing a terrorist attack, and then I was led on this journey of learning how to heal naturally, something I knew nothing about. And frankly, some of the things that you know, I encountered, and I actually used to talk to my body too, right? So I had so much pain in my body, and because I chose to go down a path of learning how to heal naturally, that meant I didn't take any pain medicine. So even though I was doing acupuncture and other types of modalities, that didn't help when I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I didn't have any of those practitioners, you know, there with me to help. And so I would find a part of my body that felt the best. right? And like that had the least amount of pain. And I just would imagine that feeling good expanded. And I would just spend time expanding it, and it would literally reduce my pain levels. And I did that out of desperation to feel better, to rise above. And so, when you're faced with something that, I felt a prisoner to, and I was like, I have got to find a way out of this. But I also knew that I had to find the most loving way um, for me to be able to heal. And I think and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that further on in the interview, how important it is for self-love, right? And so thank you. I'd like to ask you, I'd like to dovetail on what you just said about the skepticism, right? And go back to, the fact that we're in the midst of a pandemic, right? So people are dealing with real health issues. They're dealing with, or issues with loved ones having health issues, or people are dealing with financial issues. And obviously people are dealing with fear and sadness and probably some anger too. What do you say to them? What's your message to them?
Well, I think this is this is about recognizing that all of these things have existed inside us without this pandemic. We were all walking around with these emotions and fears and feelings inside of us. And this pandemic has been a catalyst for those things to rise to the surface. My message from my eczema was that I wasn't valuing my worth, right? And that's not something that turned on one day that I was that I thought I was unworthy. That's something I've been living with my entire life. And it only was until it got to a certain point that it was like you need to listen now, and everything that everyone's feeling right now is not new. If we're honest with ourselves, these are the feelings and emotions we've been walking around with for our entire life. Fear, abandonment, struggle, unhappiness, rushing around, like we're trying to keep up with the economy, all of those things. Those are all were instabilities already in our bodies, already in our atmosphere, already in our energy fields, and this has served, I believe, greatly served as a huge catalyst, as a huge awakening to be like, look at what you've been feeling this whole time. Let's not blame it on the message. Let's go in and figure out where that's come from. Because there are people right now during this time that don't feel any different. They're fine. They've made their adjustments at home. They're, homeschooling their kids or whatever it is, and they're moving on and they feel at peace. Those are people that have done their work already. They've done their healing work. They've processed. They've had long, dark nights of the soul where they're looking at all their junk for months on end and, looking at the healing. And there's some of us that have not, there's people that have not. And that this is an opportunity to do so. And if we can remove the label of COVID or the pandemic and those things, and simply address the feelings and figure out where they're coming from, then we can use this as actual medicine.
So what I hear you saying then is it's an opportunity for anyone that's struggling right now, whether it's with the virus itself or anything, right? If you're in a place of struggling or suffering in any way, it's an opportunity to take a step back and go within, right? And not look outside of ourselves for the answers and rely on, other establishments, whether it be government or municipalities or whatever, to give us the answer. What you're saying, or what I hear you saying, is the answer or the answers lie within, and the healing lies within, and that the COVID experience is a catalyst for change. It's like an opportunity to heal the instability of the way we were living our lives prior.
Completely. And it's about not putting the power out, like you said, outside of you. This isn't about like what your government or You know, people that are so outside of you, that's not where your power lays. Your power is not so far outside of you. And every time you depend on that energy to provide for you, you're taking it out of yourself, and you're lowering the voltage inside of your own body. You know, we all have a certain amount of voltage, your superpower frequency that sits inside in the solar plexus, you know, connected to the heart, throat, and all of that. It's a system, you know, and the chakras that are all connected, but that voltage sits right here in the solar plex center. And every time you put your dependence of any of those things, foundation, shelter, food, happiness, love, joy, anytime those things go outside of you, you lower your voltage inside, and therefore you weaken your ability to find energy for yourself, become sovereign. This is about us becoming our own sovereign beings, you know, and being able to see that when I pull all that energy back into that center, what can that do for me? You know, that can heal my life.
So I know we're going to spend some time talking about how do people, you know, unleash their own superpowers. And I know it's a journey, right? But I'd like to speak to, you know, if people, you know, are just getting started, you know, that there's an interest and a curiosity based upon our interview here today, and they want to start somewhere. Where do they start? Where do you encourage they begin?
Well, I mean, for me, I started with meditation, right? Because I really had to learn how to get still in my own body,
Mm.
you know, and to sort of turn off everything that was going on outside of me. So I really believe that was a really great starting point. I was also simultaneously learning about aromatherapy during this time. And one of my favorite things that aromatherapy teaches is that when your brain smells a certain smell and loves it, it's because you need it. And so, yeah, you know, and if your brain says no, it's because you don't need it. It's not for you. It's just that simple. What you love is for you, and what you don't is not. And so you already have these seeds. Like, what are the things that you love?
Does this apply to anything like food, like anything?
Yeah, this is about loving what you love, like, you know, embracing that and just and expanding on it. Because if you follow the path of love and you follow the path of joy and what makes you feel good, the other things start to come naturally. You know, it's about tuning into those are all things that already have your frequency in them. That's why you love them. It's because it's part of you already. And so, you know, for me, it was like, hey, I remember I actually love this kind of music, even just things like that, you know, and, oh, I forgot I love these types of books, you know, and oh my gosh, these crystals, like, these are such pretty colors. I'm going to bring them into my house. Like, there is no one thing, obviously, that's going to turn this on or off for you. My mentor in healing said these things turn off like a flick of a light switch, like walking into a room and turning it on, you know. And where you start is just following those little breadcrumbs, like, you know, like we call it the universal breadcrumbs. They'll lead you, and you just have to kind of let go and trust.
And what I also hear you saying is, because I've experienced those little breadcrumbs myself. In fact, my ability, you know, before the you know, living through the bombings and the terrorist attack, I had the ability to see things like, you know, multiple, you know, scenarios out. You know, I was really good in a business situation. If we talked about an idea, I could see how it would play out, you know, you know, years later. And after the bombings happened, I no longer had that ability. So even though I could see with my eyes, I felt blinded because that ability shut down. And it ended up being a gift in disguise because it helped me to trust just what was being put in front of me. And I had to take that step, not knowing how it was going to unfold, not knowing where it was going, but I had to trust the feeling. So, you know, I was like, you know, something would show up and it would feel right. And I would just take the next step, take the next step. And that's what I hear you saying. And I'll say something else is the whole love it concept is powerful because I know for myself, in my journey of healing, which took 4 years, in that process, I had an opportunity to go through everything in my life, like all of my material possessions. And I was guided to let go of everything that no longer served me and that I no longer loved, because it literally was a weight and it was keeping me from my next evolution in healing. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I felt guided to do it. And that was one of the breadcrumbs I got, was to clean up my physical environment. And so I literally purged like a ton of things. And on the other side of that, I emerged with another, layer of my physical and emotional body being healed. So sometimes it doesn't always make sense, and yet it felt right, and to continue to follow what your instincts and how you feel, really.
And those sorts of steps are so important because they're the segues into doing the same thing with your experiences that have happened to you, and your traumas and your uncomfortable things that have happened to you. Because once you start to let go of things that you don't want, that's an energy pattern that you're setting within yourself, so that eventually you get to go inwards and do the same thing. Why are you preserving stories that you don't want to carry? Just like, why are you preserving items in your house that you don't want anymore? It's the segue to doing that, because eventually it comes back inwards, and you get to look at these things in your life and say, do I want to carry this anymore or not? Do I want to let this thing weigh me down or not? And it's a choice. Like, these things are actual choices. People get mad at me when I say that, but it is a choice. It's not, was it a choice for you to go through these hard times? No, it was not a choice. No, it was not a choice for these traumatic things to happen to you or any of that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's a choice to further carry them, to further let them affect your life, So when we start working with our outer energy in our homes, and the things that we love and like, and what we decide to preserve and what gets to be sent out to the junkyard, then we can sort of do the same sort of thing inwards. And who's doing that? You know
It's powerful. I have a new perspective. I've had a lot of trauma in my life. And when I think back on it now, and I think this is why it's so important, right? Is that if I had chosen to see those previous traumas as gifts and what messages they were trying to teach me at the time, I don't know. I may never have gone through a horrific experience of a terrorist attack that blew me open and literally brought me to my knees. And, I was in a position where of surrender, frankly, because it was bigger than me. And I think, one of the things I want to make sure that we convey here today is don't wait for the illness to happen. Don't wait for whatever the trauma may be. We're actually saying that you can you can embody some of this now. It's really about getting in alignment with who we are as beings, right? As human beings, who we really are, what we are here, what is our purpose here. And, if you're not sure what your purpose is, that is one of the first steps. Take time. As Leigh said, get quiet, meditate, discover what lights you up, what are you passionate about, and start to create and pursue your life in that. And that's literally one of the ways you will go from, struggling or merely surviving to thriving, right? It's all a choice.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
It's all about moving through too. So like, even when you do have your fear, it's about not going like this and pushing it away like I did with the illness at first. It's about like looking at it face on and being like, wow, what's in here? Like what can I see? It's so scary. Like, and I can say this because I've done it. Like, I have gone through so much crap in my life that was scary for me. My own personal fear, right? Everybody's things are different, but they're scary for them. These things were scary for me. These feelings were scary. But the only time that I ever had any progress on it was when I dove head on straight in, and you will be caught on the other side. That's the beautiful part. That's the power here. That's what spirituality is. Like, spirituality and this energy work and everything is not about saying, just jump into this love and light place and you'll be fine. It's actually really ugly. It's sacredly hard. It's really, it's gross. It's really hard work. It's like you're in the mud and muck for a while. But when you move through it and everything, what's on the other side of that is better than you can ever imagine for yourself. It's like the dragonfly not even understanding that it's going to be able to fly one day. It doesn't know, has no idea why it's going into this chrysalis, what it's doing. It can't imagine what that world looks like until it's actually there.
It's so true. I mean, I couldn't imagine some of the experiences I've had in the last couple of years, when going through my own journey of healing. Like, I just wanted to get out of the pain and the suffering, right? Like, I just would be happy with that being over with. And then on the other side, it was just like I feel like I've been on a magic carpet ride, being able to produce films and do things that really matter and make a difference. I mean, these were like things that I thought would not be able to attain, and it just happened magically. And so I would say, for my own journey, and I think you would say the same thing, it's worth it. I would do it again.
Oh yeah. I don't want to.
Well, I think that's an important message here, is that I think we all have an opportunity to learn from what's happening now, right? If we do not learn a way to rise up, as better human beings that are united and peaceful and loving, there will be more suffering until we get the messages, and I say the collective we, we each play a role in that. And, we can impress upon it more, is do your work. It doesn't happen outside of you. Wishing that it were different or better, or someone else is going to take it away for you, never ever works. And actually, you lose your power. That's actually one of the first ways that you lose your power. So let's talk more about, so we talked a little bit about meditation, getting quiet, doing what lights you up and what you love. And so I know you're going to take us through an experience now of tapping into, our own superpowers. So would you like to lead us through that?
Sure. I thought we would do it sort of a grounding meditation, since, and I'm gonna sort of walk you through that. And this is this, when I say grounding, what we're doing is connecting into our root chakra. Your root chakra is the foundation of your energy. It's what anchors you here to earth. It's what allows you to feel safe, to feel comfortable. It tells you that you belong here on earth in this time, that you are perfectly placed as you are, that you have food, shelter, foundation, all those things. Everything that you need to take care of yourself is present, and that all comes from the root chakra. And so if you have an imbalance in that chakra, you will be lacking in your life in those feelings, creating fear, right? So and this, by the way, this chakra is developed between the ages of 0 to 7. So at any time during that time, you had experienced trauma, in your house or at school, or anything in that time period that happened to you, even like wars, if you lived in a place where there was, things going on during that, anything that rocked that chakra for you, you will have an instability in it until you decide later on in life to look at it, you know? So if you feel afraid or, you know, not safe, that's the time period I suggest you dive into. But we're not doing that right now. What we're going to do is I want you to feel what it feels like to feel grounded. So if you want to,
before we get started, is this something that kids can also do, or is this intended for adults? So this is intended for anyone. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So it's really just important that you feel grounded in your body, like just, you know, to feel the weight of your body, and close your eyes. I invite you to close your eyes and just sort of take a few deep breaths. And, you know, have your feet on the floor, or if you're sitting on the floor, just feel that connection to the floor below you. And tap into the energy of touching the seat that you're on or the floor beneath you. Just what does it feel like to anchor into that place? To sit in your body without judgment. And send that energy now a little bit further beyond the floor, down into the earth. You feel it expanding below, deeper and deeper into Mother Earth. And I want you to envision a tree. A big, large tree. And standing at that tree, focus on your heart. Notice how the tree welcomes your heart energy. And think about the energy of the tree's roots, anchoring into Mother Earth, just as you are doing now. Deep into the earth, stable, safe, secure. And think about what it would be like to feel this root, this tree, this stability in your life. What would that mean to you? What would you see every day that represented strength for you? What would you taste? What are the foods that feel strong and nourishing? What are the emotions? What is possible to wake up and feel safe, and secure? What does it sound like? Is it peaceful? Is it calm? Is it being told, I love you? Is it hearing the words, you are safe? and really embody this vision for yourself. And feel your energy aligning with this vision. Feel your energy, feeling the truth of that vision, and getting excited about always feeling this way. And let that tree be a reminder to you that it is possible. And just in your own head, thank the tree for sharing that energy with you, for gifting it to you to carry, to walk with today. And pull your energy up out of the ground, back into your feet, back up through your legs and back into your body. And your awareness back into the room. And open your eyes when you're ready.
Thank you. That was powerful.
Yeah, and so now the idea is that, like, I would encourage you, for anybody who's watching, to sort of write down that vision you had for yourself and those feelings. So that's the next step, is to write those feelings down. Now you have like a map for yourself, and now when you go to make your choices today or tomorrow, does this, what you're doing now, align with that vision? And if not, why not? What if it's because you're unstable in your home? Let's address that. Now you have, because a lot of this is hard for us because we don't even know what it feels like to feel good.
Yeah.
And so this is that little piece of medicine is about having the vision of what is possible. What else is possible other than feeling unstable, fear, or scared?
And you're a living testament to, as having a lot of instability early on in your life, and even as an adult, right? And now you are living a stable life, and you've been able to rise above all of those experiences, and it helped you bring you where you are today. So you're a living testament and proof of what's possible. And so that's just so beautiful. Thank you. And I know we're getting close to wrapping up here. So, and I know we've got some really exciting stuff. You've just launched a course, or I should say you finished a course. It's going to launch, I believe, June 4th. Is that correct?
You can you can buy your ticket for the course now. It starts on June 4th.
Great. So tell us about the course. I believe it's called Lift the Veil, Learn to Heal with Your Ancestors. So tell us a little bit about it and who would benefit from it.
Right. So this course is designed for people that have been handed ancestral patterns of trauma or abuse, or even just feelings that prevent them from feeling good in their life. Whatever it is, we are an energy stream with our ancestors, and that energy gets passed on. What is not healed in one life gets passed on to the next generation. And so this is about getting real about what those things are, and let's put a stop to that so that you don't have to hand it down when you leave here too. And this isn't for entertainment value. This is about figuring out what those things are so that you can change them in your life. It's not about healing them. This is about using their energy and their guidance and their support now that they've crossed over, using that, what they left for you, and what the energy that they have now supports you in this journey, using that to change your life. For example, if you had abandonment in your history of your lineage. How has abandonment showed up in your life? Let's look at that. Let's look at healing those things, and let's look at the gifts too. You know, it's not just there's divine gifts that you got from your ancestors too. But let's focus on how we stop these patterns and how we can heal.
So the course really is an opportunity. So if somebody is really struggling in their life and dealing with, and sometimes it doesn't make sense, right? Because you're like, okay, I'm a good person and I think I'm doing all the right things, but like, these things happen, whether there's, let's talk about money. If there was issues with managing money and your lineage and and ancestors, a lot of us have ancestors that lived through the Great Depression in America, right? And so those imprints of struggle and suffering got passed down. And so if you're having your own money issues or having abandonment issues or having issues with abuse or anything like that, what I'm hearing you say is like this course is an opportunity to go within, to understand the gifts in it, heal, and literally get out of that suffering state and into a state of thriving. Like, this is the whole goal, and this is really what your message is about, right? Is how do we live a life that we love, where we're thriving, right? Because it is possible, and it's possible for all. We just have to choose to do the work.
Totally. Yeah, and it's a great place to start with all this, the ancestor work, because then you, like you said, you get to discern between what is yours in this lifetime and what was handed to you, right? It's a great discerning moment. It's a great starting point.
So how long is the course? Tell us a little bit more about it.
So the course is 4 weeks long. We'll meet every Thursday live, and it's a live teaching from me. You will get ways to practice, so actual practices and for your everyday life to connect with your ancestors during this time. The things that have come out of the woodwork for clients during this time is also always really exciting. I've had people start this work and their long lost grandparent comes around, or they're handed information about their family culture that they never knew before. It was just brought into their awareness simply by putting intention into this month. You are opening up the floodgates to all this amazing information about your family as well. So it's really amazing what comes through. So every week we will have a new module. It's 4 week long. You'll have homework and journaling prompts and ways to start creating a little bit of ceremony in your life regarding this healing.
And what can people expect as benefits on the once they complete the course?
And once they complete the course, people walk away with a really amazing knowledge of what they're here to fix for their family. How they get to be the healers. This is where your healing journey starts. It's like, I get to be this person that stopped this pattern. Like, that's so amazing,
Yeah.
and to be that person, and you are so honored to be that person. It's a great feeling starting. And if you can do that, it's that sense of, if you can start this, you can do all of it now. You can start to do all of it. I think it's a very empowering place to start. It's about, bringing, like we said before, bringing that energy back. It's you don't have to drag around like, oh, everybody in my family's had money issues, so of course I have money issues. Like, no, let's stop it then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exciting.
This is for people that really want to do the work and cause a breakthrough for themselves and their family and in their lives, right? So great stuff. So people can register now and learn more by going to your website. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you go to the website and you choose the course, and it'll take you to a page where you can buy a ticket.
Perfect. Great. And the website is thisluminousLifewithLeigh.com. We'll post that with the recording, so you don't need to worry about that. You'll find it easily. Any last words of wisdom before we wrap up for today?
Just, I would just say that during this time, as we're all sitting in uncomfortness, like, and unsureness, all those things, just keep opening your heart. Keep opening your heart to, like what I said, what else is possible. I would say to bring it back home. Stop looking so far outside of you as to the, what's happening outside of your house. Like you get to stay home. Like you're being told to do this. Like, like stay home into that and go really deep and see what you can do and reach out to people that can help you. You do not have to do this alone. This is why healers are here. This is why we're all, here to help you. Don't do it alone. Have support and guidance. You deserve to be supported. You deserve to be guided through this time.
Fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I can't help but see what's behind you. Do what you love, right? That's here. If we're going to live a life, we might as well do what we love. So fantastic. Leigh, thank you so much. I appreciate your wisdom and your insights and sharing your healing and how we can unleash our superpowers from within. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jennifer.